Throughout all the Bible, you have lines of scripture that are confusing to many people because it describes Jesus Christ as the stone of stumbling and the rock of offense. So let's read what our New Testament authors have to say about this. In 1 Peter chapter 2, Peter, the apostle, talks about Jesus Christ as the rock of offense. Verse 4, to whom coming as a living stone rejected indeed by men, but chosen by God and precious. Notice it says this living stone is rejected by many in the world, and a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, especially to those who stumble at the word, being disobedient, unto which unbelief they also were appointed. Why would anyone be offended by God? Because of unbelief. The more we're obedient to God, the less that we should be offended and stumble at this stone. Now this is us, the new creation. Because don't think about the old man. The old man is offended, but we're not. We are the new creation. But you are a chosen stock, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for a possession of God, that you will proclaim his excellent virtues, who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. One day, we're going to be a part of that rock. We're going to marry that rock, Jesus Christ. We're going to be a helpmate to this rock. Those who marry Christ will never be offended. But what kind of people does Christ offend? Matthew 13, verse 20. Now the one who was sown upon the rocky places is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. But because he has no root in himself, he does not endure. For when tribulation and persecution arises because of the word, he is quickly offended. Who is the word here? Jesus Christ, the rock of offense, chosen by God and precious. Preciousness to us because we're not offended by words of the kingdom. But who was offended? The Pharisees, those who love this world. But we don't love this world. We love the kingdom. But what did they do? They shut out the words of the kingdom. And the Apostle Paul also talks about these physical people who stumble at the words of the kingdom. Romans 9 verse 31. But Israel, although they followed after a law of righteousness, did not attain to a law of righteousness. God the Father had a plan, and he showed physical Israel the examples of this plan. The wilderness that led to a promised land, which represents the kingdom. By faith, you had to believe this. But Israel didn't. They stayed in this physical example. Why? Because they did not seek it by faith, but by works of law. For they stumbled at the stone of stumbling. The works of law in the scripture is their own righteousness, their own love, their own kindness, their own joy of what they see in the simulator. And so they stumbled because they're earthly. But it feels so good. Exactly as it is written, behold, I place in Zion a stone of stumbling and a rock of offense, but everyone who believes in him shall not be ashamed. God is such a genius because he wants to know who will follow him and who will not follow him. So he sends a stone of stumbling to the children of Israel. And how about you? Because you're also part of the children of Israel. We're spiritual. We're his elect, chosen ones. And will you be offended by Christ's words, who came from above, who talks about the things above, not these physical things, but the words of the kingdom, who was rejected by this whole world. And one day, at the very end, the whole world will come together to go against this stone of stumbling, the rock of offense. And what's going to happen to them? This is the prophecy in Nebuchadnezzar's dream thousands of years ago. And it's coming very soon. Daniel 2 verse 34. You watched until a stone was cut out without hands, that struck the image upon its feet, which were of iron and clay, and broke them to pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were broken in pieces together, and they became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, so that not a trace of them was found. And the stone that struck that image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. The whole world, all the nations get destroyed by the rock of offense. And this rock will hit the toes of this great statue, and the whole Babylonian system comes down forever. So all those who were offended by the rock of our salvation will be crushed and destroyed. And this is an event that will come very soon, the day of trumpets. And we look forward to this event. Why? Because we were never ashamed by the rock of offense. So we will follow him everywhere he goes to battle for the kingdom.
Simulation complete.